Part 1. The Battle of Orvian Skies. Cold stars shone like silent watchers as the human defense fleet prepared for the largest battle in its history. Ships of every size drifted in formation, engines glowing a faint blue against the darkness. On the main flagship Resolute, commanders studied the tactical screen that showed hundreds of red marks moving toward them. Those marks belonged to the Orvian Empire, a powerful alien civilization that had crushed many species across the galaxy. Now, their fleets approached the last human line of defense. Among the thousands of pilots waiting for the signal to launch was Rion, the youngest fighter pilot in his squadron. His ship was small, old, and patched together from spare parts. Yet Rion treated it like his most trusted friend. He sat inside the cockpit, hands gripping the controls tightly, feeling his heart beat fast but steady. He had trained for this moment all his life, but training and battle were never the same. Around him, the voices of other pilots filled the comms, each trying to sound brave even though everyone knew the odds. The Orvian fleet was enormous. Their ships were larger, their weapons stronger, and their shields nearly impossible to break. Many humans feared this would be their last stand. Still, no one was willing to run. Humanity had survived too much to fall without a fight. The order came through the radio in a calm but firm voice. All squadrons, launch. Engines roared to life as hundreds of human fighters shot into space, forming waves of light that moved toward the enemy. Rion followed his squad leader, weaving between friendly ships as they crossed into the enemy's range. Almost instantly, green beams of plasma fire streaked across the void. Explosions flared like bright flowers against the black sky. The battle had begun. Rion's fighters shook as a nearby explosion sent shockwaves through space. He turned his ship hard, evading a volley of plasma fire. "Stay tight, Bravo Squad," the commander's voice echoed. "We hit their left flank and draw their fire from the cruisers," Rion acknowledged, pushing his craft forward. He saw the massive Orvian battleships ahead, their silver hulls covered in glowing runes that shimmered like fire. He locked onto a smaller enemy interceptor and fired his plasma cannons. The shot struck the target's engines, and the alien craft burst into light. Rion let out a short breath of relief. His first kill, but he could not celebrate. Another enemy came from above, firing repeatedly. He twisted his ship downward, the shots grazing his wing. Warnings flashed across his screen, but the ship still responded. He dove behind a debris field, then came around and fired again, destroying the pursuer. In the distance, human cruisers exchanged fire with the main Orvian fleet. The Orvian flagship, Empyrean, commanded by Princess Arya herself, loomed at the center. The ship was colossal, shaped like a blade, its hull glowing with energy. From her throne room window, Arya watched the battle unfold. Her people had crushed countless foes, but this fight was different. The humans were not technologically advanced, yet their tactics were unpredictable and fierce. Their smaller ships darted through the battle like sparks of defiance. Arya turned to her general. "They fight with no fear," she said. "Even knowing they cannot win?" The general bowed. "Humans are stubborn creatures, Your Highness. They value courage more than logic." "Perhaps," she replied, her eyes narrowing as she watched one small fighter dive straight into the heart of her fleet. That ship, marked with the insignia of a young pilot, was Rion's. Rion's sensors screamed with warnings as he charged toward the Orvian capital ship. Every instinct told him to turn away, but he saw a group of human bombers trapped under heavy fire. If the Orvian guns were not silenced, the bombers would be destroyed before reaching their target. "Bravo 7, cover the bombers," his commander ordered. Rion knew what that meant. He was Bravo-7. He accelerated, the engines straining. Plasma blasts streaked past him. One grazed his tail, shaking the whole craft. The cockpit rattled, alarms flaring red. "Come on, hold together," he whispered, adjusting the controls. He rolled between two enemy destroyers and fired at their weak points. His shots hit the fuel lines, creating a massive explosion that tore through the nearest ships. The blast blinded even his sensors. When the smoke cleared, the bombers had a clear path. "Target cleared," he said, into the comms. Good work, Bravo 7, the commander replied. Now get back before they tear you apart. But retreat was impossible. More enemy fighters swarmed his position. Rian twisted and rolled, firing again and again. He managed to take out 2, but a third hit his wing hard. The ship spun out of control. He barely regained balance, the stars spinning wildly outside his window. In those moments, he thought of home, of the green hills he had left behind, and the people he had promised to protect. Inside the Empyrean, Princess Araya's screen zoomed in on the single human fighter dodging between her forces. She was fascinated by its movements. That pilot, she said softly. Who is he? The general looked at his data console. Unknown, Highness. The ship's identification code suggests he is very young. Perhaps one of their new recruits? Araya's eyes narrowed. He fights like a veteran. That moment, Rian's fighter broke through another wave of ships and aimed straight for one of the Orvian energy cannons mounted on the flagship's outer ring. His scanners locked onto the glowing core of the weapon. He fired 2 missiles. The impact was massive, sending ripples of light across the flagship's shields. Inside, alarms echoed through the alien ship as the energy field flickered. The general shouted, shields dropping on the lower ring. That human damaged our main cannon? Arya watched in disbelief. One small ship did that. Yes, Princess. Their fighters should not be capable of such force. She looked again at the screen, watching the small human craft spin away after the attack. He should be dead, yet he continues to fight. Rian's ship was damaged, smoke filling the cockpit. His oxygen was dropping and his control system sparked. But he was alive. He checked his systems and saw his squad was retreating to regroup. The main fleet had achieved something unthinkable. They had pushed the Orvian forces back. The battle was not over, but the humans had survived the first wave. He gritted his teeth and turned his ship around to rejoin his squad. The Orvian fleet began to withdraw to a higher orbit. Their commanders uncertain. No one in the galaxy had ever forced the Orvian Empire to pull back. The humans had not only survived, but had inflicted serious damage. News spread across the communication channels faster than light. For the first time, the Orvian royal fleet had tasted defeat. On the flagship bridge, Arya rose from her throne. Cease fire, she ordered. We have tested their strength. Now I wish to know their hearts, her general frowned. Princess, shall we prepare for another attack? No, she said firmly. They have earned a pause. There is something about these humans that I must understand. Below, on the human side, cheers erupted across the fleet. Damaged ships limped back to the base station. Medical crews rushed to help the wounded, and engineers worked non-stop to repair what was left. Rian's fighter landed on the carrier Aurora. The landing gear barely held as smoke trailed behind. When the canopy opened, he climbed out, covered in sweat and soot. His squad mates greeted him with shouts and laughter. You did it, kid. You saved the bombers. One pilot said, patting his shoulder. Rian smiled weakly, still catching his breath. We all made it back. That's what matters. The commander approached and saluted. Rian, that was the bravest thing I've seen in years. You gave us a fighting chance. Thank you, sir, Rian replied, unsure how to respond. He did not feel like a hero. He only did what he thought was right. That night, as he sat alone in the pilot's quarters, Rian looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there, the enemy fleet was still watching. He wondered if the war would ever end or if this was only the beginning. He did not know that at that very moment, Princess Arya was standing on the deck of her ship, gazing at the same stars. Her mind replayed the image of the human pilot's ship cutting through the chaos, fearless and determined. She turned to her attendant. Find out who that pilot is, she said. The one who struck my fleet. I want to know his name, as you command, Princess. The next morning, messages traveled between both sides under a white signal of truce. For the first time since the war began, an offer of communication was opened. Human command debated for hours whether to accept it. Some feared it was a trap. Others believed it could lead to peace. Rian was summoned to the command room, surprised and nervous. When he entered, every officer turned to look at him. General Stone spoke calmly. Rian, the Orvian princess herself, has requested a meeting. She said she wants to meet the youngest warrior who fought in the battle. Rian blinked, unsure what to say. Me, sir. Yes, the general said. She asked for you by name. The room fell silent. No one knew what this meant. Was it an honor or a warning? Rian stood straight and answered firmly. If it means helping our people, I will go. The general nodded. Prepare yourself, son. The future of two worlds may depend on what happens next. Outside, the stars shimmered peacefully for the first time in months, hiding the tension that was about to unfold. The war was far from over, but something had changed that night. An empire had been humbled, and a single human's courage had caught the... Part 2, the royal decree the next day began with silence across the fleet. Human commanders gathered inside the main war chamber aboard the flagship Resolute. Screens flickered with messages from the Orvian side, each carrying the same strange request. The Orvian Empire had called for a temporary ceasefire. They wanted peace talks. And the condition was unusual. Their princess, Arya, wanted to meet one specific human warrior, the youngest among the pilots. That warrior was Rian. Many officers argued it was too risky. Some believed it was a trap meant to capture or humiliate the young pilot who had damaged their flagship. But others saw an opportunity. If the princess was sincere, perhaps this could lead to a real peace. Humanity had won a small victory, but the war could still destroy both sides. General Stone finally made the decision. We will send an envoy, he said, and Rian will go with them. But we will keep our eyes open. When Rian heard the news, he felt a mix of pride and fear. He was just a soldier, not a diplomat. He had never stood before an alien royal before. He spent the morning preparing his uniform, cleaning his old flight jacket until it shone. His squad mates watched from a distance, some cheering him on, others warning him to stay cautious. If she tries anything strange, don't trust her, one pilot said. Rian smiled slightly. I don't plan to start any wars in a meeting. Hours later, a small human shuttle left the fleet under the white flag of truce. It carried General Stone to diplomats and Rian. The journey to the Orvian flagship was short but tense. Through the window, Rian could see the massive silver structure of the Empyrean approaching. It was far larger than any human ship, glowing faintly with blue energy streams. Even damaged, it looked majestic and frightening. The shuttle docked inside a large hangar. Orvian guards in silver armor waited in perfect rows. Their eyes glowed faintly from the light of their helmets, and their movements were silent and precise. The humans stepped out carefully, trying not to show fear. Rian followed behind the diplomats, keeping his expression calm. The hangar doors opened to reveal a long golden hallway lined with banners. At the end stood Princess Arya. She wore a flowing robe of blue and silver, her posture straight and regal. Her eyes, a deep shade of violet, studied the humans as they approached. When they stopped before her throne, the hall fell quiet. Even the guards stood motionless. Arya's voice echoed through the chamber, calm but filled with power. I am Princess Arya of the Orvian Empire. I thank you for accepting this meeting. General Stone stepped forward. We come in peace, Princess. Humanity wishes only to defend its worlds, not to conquer others. Arya nodded slowly, then turned her gaze to Rian. And this, she said softly, is the warrior who faced my fleet? Everyone's eyes turned to him. Rian bowed slightly, trying to remain composed. I am Pilot Rian, Princess. I fought to protect my people, nothing more. Arya studied him closely. You damaged my ship, destroyed 3 of our fighters, and yet lived when logic said you should not. I have seen thousands of battles, but never have I seen such defiance in one so young. She paused, then raised her hand, pointing directly at him. He will be mine. The hall erupted in whispers. The human officers froze, uncertain what she meant. Rian blinked, unsure how to respond. Princess General Stone said cautiously, What do you mean by that? Arya's tone was calm. Do not mistake my words. I seek no slave, no prisoner. I seek understanding. I want him to stay among us for a time, to learn who we are, and for us to learn who humans truly are. Rian hesitated. You want me to live among your people? Yes, Arya said, her gaze unwavering. You are the first human to challenge me and survive. That alone earns my respect. You will be my guest. The human delegation withdrew to a side chamber to discuss. Some argued it was too dangerous. She might want information about our fleet, one diplomat said. But General Stone looked thoughtful. If she truly means peace, sending Rian could open doors we never imagined. He turned to Rian. The choice is yours, son. We will not force you. Rian looked down at his hands. He thought of the battle, of how close everyone had come to dying. If there was even a small chance to stop the war, he could not refuse. He met the general's eyes. I'll go. Moments later, Rian stood again before the princess. I accept your offer, Princess Arya. I will go with you. Arya gave a small nod. Then let it be known. From this day, Rian of Earth will stay under the protection of the Orvion royal house. The next hours passed quickly. The human shuttle departed, leaving Rian behind. As it left the hangar, he felt a strange emptiness in his chest. He was now alone among aliens, surrounded by people who had once been his enemies. Orvian attendants led him through long hallways lined with light crystals. The walls hummed softly with power, and every surface shone like polished glass. It was beautiful but cold. Arya met him later in a vast garden inside the ship. It was filled with strange glowing plants that floated gently in the air. Streams of silver water flowed through the paths, creating a calm sound. She stood beside a tall crystal tree, her gaze on the stars beyond the transparent ceiling. You are far from home, she said quietly. Yes, Rian replied. I've never been this far into enemy space before. Arya turned slightly. Do you still see us as your enemy? Rian hesitated. I don't know. Maybe I did yesterday. But today feels different. For a long moment, they said nothing. Then Arya smiled faintly. Good. I would rather you see us with open eyes. Many of my people believe humans are reckless and wild. But I saw something else in you. I saw purpose. They walked through the garden as she spoke about her people's history. The Orvians were one of the oldest races in the galaxy. They had built their empire through order and control. Every citizen followed strict laws, every action measured by logic. But Arya confessed that sometimes she wondered if they had lost something along the way. We do not feel as deeply as your kind, she said. Perhaps that is why your courage confuses us. You risk everything for what you love. Rian listened carefully. Maybe courage comes from fear, he said. We fight because we're afraid of losing what matters. Family, friends, freedom. Arya seemed to think about his words. Fear as strength. That is not a lesson our people understand. Over the next few days, Rian saw more of the Orvian ship. He was treated with respect, though some guards looked at him with suspicion. He met engineers, soldiers, and scholars who asked endless questions about humanity. Some laughed at human customs, others were curious. One engineer even admired the design of his fighter. Crude, the alien said, but creative. Humans build from whatever they can find, Rian laughed. That's what makes us survive. At night, he returned to his guest quarters, where he wrote notes for the human command. He wanted them to know he was safe. He described the princess as proud but fair, someone who truly wished to understand. He also admitted that he was learning more about the Orvians than he expected. Meanwhile, the Orvian council chambers. Not everyone approved of Arya's decision. The high generals argued that keeping a human aboard was a risk. He is a soldier, one said. He could be a spy, but Arya defended him. He is a bridge. Through him, we may prevent another war. Her father, the Emperor, agreed to let her continue, though he warned her not to trust wisely. Back in the garden, Arya and Rian spoke often. She asked about Earth, and he told her stories about oceans, mountains, and music. She was fascinated by human art, something the Orvians rarely practiced. You create beauty even during war, she said once. That is rare, Rian smiled. It's how we remind ourselves we're still alive. As the days passed, their conversations grew easier. The guards who once eyed Rian with suspicion began to greet him politely. He learned basic Orvian phrases and shared human jokes that made some of the younger officers laugh. For the first time in many years, the halls of the Empyrean felt lighter. Yet outside the royal ship, not everyone was at peace. A faction of Orvian commanders saw the princess's growing interest in a human as an insult to their empire. They whispered in the shadows, plotting ways to end her experiment. But for now, the princess ignored their doubts. She had seen something in Rian that even she could not explain. One evening, as they stood again beneath the crystal tree, Arya looked up at the stars and said, "You have changed the way I see this war. Rian, before, I thought victory was the only path. Now I wonder if understanding is stronger." Rian answered softly. "Maybe both are needed. Strength to defend what's right, and understanding to make peace when it's possible." Arya smiled. Wise words for one so young. In that moment, something silent passed between them. Respect. Perhaps even friendship. Neither could see the future that awaited them, but both knew the galaxy had shifted that day. The war that had begun with fear might one day end with hope. As Rian looked at the stars beyond the garden glass, he thought of Earth, his comrades, and the strange fate that had brought him here. He did not know that his presence aboard the Empyrean had already begun to change the heart of an empire. The palace of Orvia Prime stood tall and silent under the glow of twin moons. Inside the vast marble halls, Rian followed Princess Arya as guards and attendants bowed in respect. He was wearing a simple gray uniform now, not his battle gear, but his steps were steady and proud. He had come as a representative of humanity, yet he felt like a stranger in a world made of silver walls and floating lights. Princess Arya led him into a grand chamber. The ceiling was painted with images of Orvian heroes, and crystal chandeliers shimmered like stars. She turned toward him and studied his face with calm eyes. "Tell me, human," she said, "why do your people fight when they know they can lose?" Rian thought for a moment. His voice was quiet but firm when he answered. "We fight because giving up means losing everything. We fight to live, not to conquer." Arya's gaze softened. No one in her court had ever spoken with such plain honesty. For the first time, she wondered if the human strength was not in their weapons, but in their hearts. Over the next few days, Rian was treated as a guest rather than a captive. Servants showed him the palace gardens where golden flowers floated in the air and trees glowed faintly with blue light. He watched Orvian children playing in the courtyards, laughing as they chased bright-winged insects. It was a peaceful sight that reminded him of Earth. Arya met with him every day. She asked about the human world, about cities, oceans, and mountains. Rian spoke simply, telling her about his home near a quiet lake, about people who worked hard and dreamed of the stars. One afternoon, Arya invited him to walk with her through the Hall of Memories. It was filled with ancient statues and murals that told the story of the Orvian Empire. She stopped in front of one tall carving, showing an old king with a sword raised high. "This was our founder," she said. "He believed our people were chosen to rule all others. It is what my father still believes." Rian looked at the statue. "And what do you believe?" he asked. She turned to him. "I believe strength means more when it is shared. Power is only worthy if it protects, not destroys." Her words surprised him. She was not like the proud rulers he had imagined. There was wisdom in her, and something else, curiosity about the world beyond her own. As the days passed, the two began to understand each other more deeply. They shared stories of battles and losses, of friends who had fallen and dreams that had survived. Sometimes they argued. Rian defended the human way of freedom, while Arya spoke of order and unity. Yet each discussion ended with quiet respect. One evening, as they stood on a balcony overlooking the shining city, Arya spoke softly. "When I first saw you, I thought you were a reckless boy. But now I see something else. You carry the will of your people in your eyes." Rian smiled faintly. "And I see in you a leader who wants peace, but carries the weight of war." They watched the twin moons rise, and for the first time, neither saw an enemy standing beside them. Still, not everyone was pleased by this growing friendship. In the lower levels of the palace, whispers spread among the royal guards and council members. Some believed the princess was being deceived by human charm. Others saw a chance to use the situation for their own gain. Aria's chief advisor, Lord Venner, met secretly with several generals who were angry about the peace talks. If the princess continues this path, he said, she will weaken the empire. We cannot allow that human to cloud her judgment. They planned to watch Rian closely and search for any mistake they could use against him. Unaware of this danger, Rian continued his daily lessons about Orvian culture. He learned their written symbols, their songs, and their rituals of honor. He respected their traditions, even when he did not understand them. The Orvians, in turn, began to see him as more than a soldier. Some guards even nodded in greeting when he passed. One night, Arya invited him to a ceremony at the Temple of Stars. The great dome above them opened to the sky, revealing countless shining lights. Priests sang in low tones as energy crystals floated around the room. It was a sight of beauty and harmony. This is how we honor the universe, Arya explained. We believe every light in the sky holds the spirit of a hero who gave their life for others. Rian looked up and whispered, "Then your sky and ours are the same. We also look to the stars to remember those we lost." The princess smiled. "Maybe that is why you and I met." As they left the temple, a faint tremor shook the ground. Distant explosions echoed through the city. Guards rushed in, reporting that an energy reactor had been sabotaged. The lights flickered, and the air filled with tension. Arya gave quick orders to secure the palace. Rian offered his help, and though her guards hesitated, she allowed him to accompany her. Together, they went to the control chamber. Screens showed flames in one of the outer towers. The attackers were unknown. The damage was severe. While technicians worked to contain the fire, Arya turned to Rian. "This was no accident," she said. "Someone wants to end these talks." Rian nodded. "Then we find who did this. Peace cannot be built on lies." For the next several days, Rian and Arya investigated the sabotage. They questioned workers and reviewed recordings. The more they searched, the clearer it became that the act came from within the palace itself. Late one evening, Rian found a small piece of metal hidden near the damaged control panels. It carried the insignia of an elite guard unit. When he brought it to Arya, she grew silent. "That is the mark of Lord Venner's men," she said. "If he is behind this, the danger is greater than we thought." Her loyalty to her people made her hesitate. She had known Venner since childhood, but Rian's calm expression gave her strength. "Sometimes loyalty must serve truth," he said. That night, Arya called a secret meeting with her most trusted allies. Together, they planned to expose the conspiracy. Rian stood beside her, no longer an outsider, but a partner in her struggle. As the moonlight streamed through the palace windows, Arya looked at him and said, "You have changed how I see humans. You fight for what you believe, even when the odds are against you," Rian replied. "And you have shown me that even in the heart of an empire, honor still lives." The bond between them had grown beyond curiosity. It was built on respect and shared purpose. They both knew the path ahead would be difficult, but neither intended to turn away in the following days. Rian trained with Orvian guards, learning their fighting style and tactics. They were surprised by how quickly he adapted. His movements were sharp and efficient, his eyes focused. The commander of the guard admitted that humans possessed a fierce spirit unlike any other. At night, Arya studied Earth's history through the data Rian provided. She read about human wars, victories, and sacrifices. What amazed her most was how humans kept rising no matter how many times they fell. She once asked him, "How do your people keep hope when the universe seems against them?" Rian answered, "Because hope is the only thing we cannot lose. Even if everything else is gone, hope stays." His words stayed in her heart long after he left the room. Meanwhile, Venner and his allies grew desperate. They saw how the princess and the human were working together, winning support from others in the court. Soon, they decided to act before their plan was uncovered, in the final moments of Part 3. The palace prepared for a grand feast to celebrate the renewal of peace. Lights filled the halls, music echoed across the gardens, and banners of both human and Orvian colors hung side by side. Rian stood by Aria's side, unaware that Venner's men were already moving in the shadows. The piece they had built so carefully was about to face its greatest test. Arya looked at Rian and said quietly, "No matter what happens tonight, I trust you." He bowed slightly, "And I will not fail you." The drums sounded, the doors opened, and the feast began. The night was filled with beauty, but beneath the surface, danger waited to strike, the friendship between a human warrior and an alien. Princess had become something greater than either had expected. It was a spark that could change the fate of two worlds, will be extinguished before it had a chance to shine. Part 4. The Shadow Within. The halls of the Empyrean shimmered with golden light as the palace prepared for another day of lessons and training. Rian had begun to adapt to the rhythm of Orvian life. He no longer felt like a visitor, but someone who belonged, at least in part, to the world he had once thought alien. Each morning, he practiced with the guards, learning their techniques while teaching them human strategies. Slowly, he began to earn their respect, and even some of the younger officers looked to him for guidance. Princess Arya watched him during these sessions, noting his speed, precision, and the determination in his eyes. "You are improving quickly," she said one morning as they stood in the training hall. "Your people have a strength that cannot be measured by weapons or armor." Rian smiled faintly. "We fight because we must and because we care. That makes us strong in ways your empire may not expect." Arya nodded thoughtfully. She had never met a warrior like him before. His courage was matched by his calm mind, and his loyalty to his people, even from afar, left a mark on her heart. Yet shadows lurked within the palace walls. Lord Venner and his allies had grown more restless. Their whispers had become plots. They believed that the human presence threatened the Empire's traditions and their own power. Some generals openly complained about Aria's decision to allow Rian freedom within the palace. But she ignored their warnings. She trusted her instincts, and her instincts told her that Rian was more than a guest. He was a bridge to a new future. One evening, while Arya and Rian walked through the palace gardens, a messenger arrived, breathless. "Princess, there has been an incident in the lower levels. Security cameras show an unidentified figure near the armory." Arya's eyes narrowed. "We will investigate immediately." She turned to Rian. "Stay close. I do not intend to face this alone." Together, they moved toward the armory, accompanied by two trusted guards. The corridors were dark, illuminated by the soft glow of energy panels. The air smelled faintly of ozone, a reminder of the advanced technology that powered the palace. As they approached the armory, a group of armed figures appeared from the shadows. They were clad in black armor, marked with the insignia of elite palace guards Venner's men. "Step aside, Princess," one of them said, his voice low and threatening. "This human does not belong here." Rian stepped forward, placing himself between Arya and the intruders. "You will not harm her," he said firmly, "or you will answer to me." A tense silence fell. The guards raised their weapons, and for a moment it seemed as if the hall would erupt in violence. Then Arya raised her hand. "We do not need to fight," she said. "Tell me why you are here." The leader sneered. "The human is a spy. He seeks to steal your secrets, Princess." "You are being deceived." Arya's eyes flashed with anger. "Lies," she said. "I have watched him for days. He has done nothing but show honor and courage. If you doubt him, you will answer to me." The tension broke with the sound of an alarm. The outer gates of the palace had been breached. Screens lit up with images of a small group of saboteurs planting explosives near key energy conduits. The conspirators were attempting to destabilize the entire palace from within. Rian's instincts took over. He turned to Arya. "Stay here. I will stop them." "No," she said, her voice steady. "We face this together. You are not alone in my fight." Together they moved through the corridors, Rian using his knowledge of human tactics, and Arya using her authority and understanding of the palace layout. They coordinated silently, dodging traps and confronting Venner's men as they went. The intruders were skilled, but Rian's quick thinking and Arya's decisiveness gave them the advantage. At the armory, they found the central saboteur attempting to ignite a series of explosive charges. Rian moved with lightning speed, disabling several devices while Arya used her energy staff to block any attack. The saboteur lunged at Rian, but he sidestepped and used a grappling maneuver to subdue him. Arya quickly deactivated the final explosives with the help of her guards. The hall fell silent again, the danger neutralized. Rian and Arya stood together, breathing heavily, their faces lit by the soft glow of the palace lights. "You were remarkable," Arya said, her voice calm but filled with admiration. "Your people's courage is not just for the battlefield. It shines even in the shadows." Rian shook his head. "I only did what I had to. You would have done the same." Arya smiled faintly. "Perhaps, but you saved more than just me today. You saved the trust of your people and mine." The conspirators were imprisoned, and their plot was exposed to the council. Venner and his allies could no longer hide their treachery. The princess confronted them, her authority absolute. "You sought to destroy my peace with fear and lies," she said. "You have failed. The human you doubted has proven what it means to be strong, loyal, and honorable. Let this lesson guide you in the future." Venner bowed, defeated, and was escorted from the council chamber under guard. The other generals watched silently, realizing that the empire had changed. Arya had not only defended her throne, but had shown that wisdom and courage could come from unexpected places. In the aftermath, Rian found himself celebrated by the palace. Guards who once doubted him now nodded in respect. Scientists and scholars who had been skeptical approached him to learn from his tactics. Even the youngest Orvian children laughed as he demonstrated human training exercises in the gardens. Arya and Rian spent the evening together in the palace observatory. The room was filled with glowing panels showing distant galaxies, nebulae, and the paths of wandering comets. They stood side by side, looking out at the stars. "You have changed more than my view of humans," Arya said quietly. "You have changed the heart of this empire. I see courage, loyalty, and hope where others saw weakness." Rian looked at her. "And you have shown me that even the greatest empire can learn to listen, to see beyond fear and tradition." They stood in silence for a long time, letting the weight of their actions settle. The palace was safe, the conspirators neutralized, and the bond between human and princess stronger than ever. Yet both knew that the galaxy was vast and filled with challenges. This victory, though important, was only one step in a much larger journey. The next days were filled with preparation. Arya worked with Rian to strengthen security, improve communication with human forces, and teach the Orvian guards new strategies. They trained together, studied together, and slowly, the two worlds began to understand each other more deeply. Rian learned the Orvian way of thinking, their discipline, and their tactics. Arya learned about human resilience, their ability to adapt, and their loyalty. Together, they created a small team of trusted soldiers who were prepared to defend the palace against any future threats. One evening, as they walked through the gardens filled with floating lights and gentle streams, Arya spoke softly. "You are unlike any human I have ever met. You carry the spirit of your people in your heart, yet you adapt to mine without losing yourself. And you are unlike any leader I have ever met. You fight for your people, yet you listen to others, even when it is difficult." Their bond had grown stronger, rooted in mutual respect, courage, and shared experience. They knew the path ahead would not be easy, but they were no longer alone. Together they could face any challenge. As the night deepened, the twin moons of Orvia Prime rose high above the palace. Stars sparkled like distant fires, and the universe seemed vast and unending. Yet in that moment, Arya and Rian knew that courage, trust, and loyalty could shine brighter than any star. The palace had survived the shadow within, but the journey was far from over. Both human and Orvian would need to face new trials, new enemies, and the challenges of two worlds learning to live together. Yet for now, peace reigned. And the bond between a young human warrior and an alien princess had become a symbol of hope across the empire. The empire had seen fear and betrayal. But it had also witnessed courage and loyalty. And for the first time, a human and an alien princess stood together, not as enemies, but as partners, ready to shape the future of their worlds. Part 5, The Choice of Two Hearts. The morning light spilled across the halls of the Empyrean, casting long shadows through the crystal windows. The palace, still recovering from the sabotage and internal plots, felt alive with cautious energy. Rian walked beside Princess Arya, both of them preparing for a day that would mark a turning point in the history of their two worlds. The human warrior had become more than a guest. He had become a symbol of courage, loyalty, and hope for the Orvian people. The palace courtyard was bustling with activity. Orvian citizens gathered to witness the grand ceremony Arya had arranged to honor the courage and spirit of the human people. Scouts reported that human ships had arrived in orbit, curious to see the outcome of their ambassador's time among the Orvians. Among the humans were leaders, engineers, and soldiers who had fought alongside Rian. Their arrival signified the beginning of a new era of diplomacy between the two worlds. Arya turned to Rian, her eyes reflecting the twin moons still visible in the early morning sky. Today, we show both our people that courage and trust can bridge even the widest divides. Are you ready? Rian nodded. I am ready, Princess. I only hope our actions speak louder than words. The ceremony began in the main plaza, a vast open space filled with banners and glowing lights. Orvian musicians played soft melodies, blending alien harmonics with the subtle rhythms of human instruments brought aboard the flagship. The crowd watched in silence as Arya and Rian took their places at the center of the plaza. Arya raised her hand to the assembly. People of the Orvian Empire, she began, we have witnessed courage that knows no bounds. A young human warrior, far from his home, faced danger without fear, and proved that strength is measured not by size or technology, but by heart and will. The crowd murmured, some in disbelief, others in admiration. Rian felt a rush of emotion. He had never imagined that his actions, simple in their intent, would inspire so many across the stars. She continued, her gaze on him. Rian of Earth has not only defended his people, but has also shown us that even in our empire, there is room for understanding, for peace, and for honor. The assembly erupted in applause. Orvian soldiers, who once doubted him, now bowed, and citizens cheered. Rian stood straight, feeling a mix of humility and pride. He had always fought for survival, for protection of those he loved. But now he realized that courage could inspire and unite entire worlds. After the formal speeches, Arya stepped closer to Rian. As your deeds have bridged our peoples, she said softly, I offer you a choice. You may return to your home, taking the honor of the Orvian Empire with you, or you may stay and continue to learn, teach, and guide us. Rian considered her words carefully. His heart yearned for Earth, for his family, and for the friends who had trained with him. Yet he also understood the importance of the bond he had created with Arya and her people. His courage had been recognized, but now responsibility called him to a higher purpose. He looked into Arya's eyes, seeing both strength and trust. Princess Arya, he said, his voice steady, I will return to Earth, but I will carry the lessons and hope of this empire with me. I will continue to serve as a bridge between our worlds, to ensure that peace is not just a moment, but a lasting path. Arya's expression softened. Then it is your choice, Rian. You are not mine to take. You are free, and yet your heart belongs to the ideals you carry. The ceremony concluded with a display of lights and energy projections across the plaza. Ships from both species lifted into the sky, forming a circle of unity above the palace. The audience watched in awe as the lights intertwined. Symbolizing the new alliance between humans and Orvians, Rian spent the next few days preparing for his departure. He trained with Orvian soldiers one last time, shared meals and stories with Arya, and walked through the gardens, remembering the floating flowers and crystal streams that had become familiar and comforting. Arya accompanied him, their conversations filled with reflection and hope. One evening, As the twin moons rose, Arya handed Rian a small crystal. "This is a gift," she said. "A reminder that courage and understanding can shine in the darkest places. Wherever you go, it will guide you." Yen accepted it with gratitude. "I will keep it close, and I will not forget everything I have learned here." The day of departure arrived. The human shuttle waited in the courtyard, engines humming softly. Citizens and soldiers lined the path, waving and cheering. Rian looked at Arya one last time. Her gaze was steady, filled with pride and warmth. "You have changed history," she said, "and you have changed my heart. Remember, you are always welcome here." Rian bowed deeply. "Thank you, Princess, for everything." He stepped into the shuttle, which lifted gently into the sky. From the windows, he watched Orvia Prime recede, glowing under the light of the twin moons. The palace, the gardens, and the people who had once seemed so different now felt like a part of him. As the shuttle joined the human fleet in orbit, Rian felt a sense of purpose, unlike any before. He had begun this journey as a young warrior, barely trained, but he returned as a symbol of hope, unity, and the power of courage. Across the stars, his actions had proven that humanity's spirit could inspire even the greatest empires. Meanwhile, back in the palace, Arya stood on her balcony, looking up at the departing ships. She felt a deep respect and admiration for the human who had changed the course of her empire. In her heart, she knew that Rian's journey was only beginning, and that his courage would shape the future for generations to come. The Orvian court, once filled with suspicion and fear, had begun to change. Guards and citizens alike had witnessed what true bravery could accomplish. The shadow of doubt cast by conspirators had been dispelled, replaced by trust, cooperation, and hope. Weeks later, messages from Rian arrived on Orvia Prime. Reports of joint missions, shared technology, and cultural exchanges were sent through secure channels. The princess read each one carefully, smiling as she saw how the two worlds were learning from each other. One evening, Arya stood beneath the crystal tree in the palace gardens, thinking of Rian and the human world. She felt a quiet confidence that this was only the beginning of a new era. Humanity had shown its strength, and the Orvian Empire had learned that courage, loyalty, and honor could come from even the smallest and youngest among them. Yon's actions became legendary. Across both empires, stories were told of the young human who had faced an alien fleet, earned the trust of a princess, and helped prevent war through courage and understanding. His deeds inspired both humans and Orvians to look beyond fear and prejudice, to recognize that strength and honor could unite even the most different of worlds. In the end, Rian returned to Earth not only as a warrior, but as a symbol of hope. The universe had learned a lasting truth. Humans may be small in number, but their hearts, courage, and determination could shine brighter than the stars themselves. Princess Arya, watching the galaxy from her palace, knew that their story would be remembered for generations. A human had taught her people the value of courage and friendship, and though the stars were vast and full of unknown dangers, she was certain that, with allies like Rian, the future would be brighter than anyone could imagine. The choice of two hearts, one human. One alien had not been about ownership or power. It had been about respect, trust, and the shared understanding that courage and loyalty could change the course of history. And so, across the galaxy, the story of Rian and Princess Arya became a beacon, a reminder that even in times of conflict, hope, bravery, and the bond between worlds could endure, shaping a future where humans and aliens could stand together as equals, guided by honor, strength, and the enduring light of the heart.